Senate Resolution 44, recognizing the public service of the Honorable Tod Kaufman.
Junior Senator from the 8th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 44, recognizing the dedicated public service of the Honorable Tod Joseph Kaufman.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Today it's my honor to begin this conversation in recognizing the over 40 years of public service by one Tod J. Kaufman. His years of service started as an honorary page at the age of 15. His father, Paul J. Kaufman, was a member of this body from 1960 to 1964. Thereafter, Judge Kaufman was counsel to Senate Majority Leader William Moreland. And he became a senator, Judge Kaufman did, in his own right, fulfilling the last 2 years of a term from 1982 to 84, and then was elected in his own right, representing the interests and people of Kanawha County from 1984 to 1988. Following his service in the Senate, he was elected judge of the Kanawha County Circuit Court, where he has remained up until just a few days ago as a circuit court judge here of Kanawha County. His service to the public speaks for itself, over 40 years, and I'm sure he's run and walked the halls of this beautiful building longer than anyone else that is presently here today. I wanted to do this resolution along with my colleagues here of our caucus, because I wanted to share, not just recognize Judge Kaufman's service to the public, but it gives me an opportunity to talk about him as a judge and the things that separated him, I believe, from his colleagues. And I'm just going to share 3 things. One, as you can imagine, the one thing that all the law shows get right is that when you're in a courtroom or you're in litigation, it's an adversarial process. There are winners and losers coming out of a hearing, obviously winners and losers coming out of trial. And what Judge Kaufman did as a judge, I think, whether he knew it or not, was he attempted to foster and facilitate, regardless of that, some type of collegiality. I'm going to give you an example of that. Whenever there was a new attorney or an attorney that he didn't recognize in his courtroom, before the hearing ever began, he would walk off the bench and welcome the new attorney. He would ask where he went to school or where she went to school, how he or she got the job at the firm that they got. He took an interest, which as a young attorney myself, I appreciated, because I'll tell you, just like any other profession on your first day out, you are nervous beyond belief. And I appreciated that judge. A second thing that he would do that I really appreciated, because again, it fostered the collegiality of members of the bar. And I was actually talking to the senator of Cabell about how adversarial, and I'm sure the senator from Morgan would agree with me on this, that litigation is adversarial, but you've got to not take it to the point to where you burn a bridge with opposition, because one day that attorney who you may not be happy with is going to accommodate you, and you for her or him. Judge Kaufman knows that and understands it. And so at the end of a hearing, regardless of who won or lost, he would welcome people to the bench just to talk about the impact of the ruling, talk about, what the next step is in litigation, ask how your family's doing. And again, that was just a good way to break the stress of the situation, because someone has to walk away empty-handed. I've had a number of hearings before Judge Kaufman. I've been practicing for 13 years here in Kanawha County, and as you can imagine, 2 trials, and if I've had 1 hearing, I've had 100. But the one thing I want to say about him that I saw not in any of my cases or hearings, but I saw in an eviction hearing, Judge Kaufman is an empathetic individual. People think that judges just mechanically apply the law. Well, that's just not what happens. Every case is different. There are facts that are important to cases, that while the law may say one thing, again, all the lawyers in the room know there are a number of exceptions to whatever the rule is. And so as a judge, you have to apply not just the law, but the exceptions based upon the facts that are before you. And I think one of the most important things judges can be is empathetic, just as much as you would like a doctor that's empathetic or a teacher that's empathetic, someone who can just stand in the shoes of people before them and try to understand their motivation. Now again, to this eviction hearing. I was waiting for my hearing to come up. You had a landlord that was trying to evict a family. Family was behind rent by 6 months. The family in response said, well, utilities were part of that. We haven't had hot water for 3 months. The air conditioning hasn't worked. And Judge Kaufman looked over the landlord and said, until you do what you're supposed to do, I don't want to hear any more about this family being evicted. I don't know if, I would hope most judges would come to the same conclusion, but I'm not certain of that. And so, again, this is an opportunity. I want to say thank you to Judge Kaufman for his service. I appreciate the opportunity to honor his service to the state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Cabell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just say this. Tod Kaufman is one of the most thoughtful, kindest, most compassionate, caring people, one of the best people I've ever met in my life, and it's great to see you here, Todd. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, for those of us that are not unfortunate enough to be in the courtroom, you would have a hard time knowing what kind of monumental job judges do. You know, the justice system's an imperfect system that tries to resolve disputes between imperfect human beings. It's an impossible task. And the judges are the king of that courtroom. And you got to be a lawyer to appreciate that, but they're king. And you know, on some kings, the robes weigh heavy, and they rule with an iron fist. Other kings are wise and civil, like King Solomon. And you know, all judges have to have a certain amount of education, just like doctors. They got to have a certain amount of experience. They got to have the ability to make decisions and have judgments. But the one thing they don't require when they elect people judges is that they have wisdom. And wisdom is the ability to be able to treat people, whether they're right or wrong, with civility and respect. And those are unique talents. I never had them. Trust me. You all know that. But when you have an individual that has that, and they've become a judge, and they've been a judge for a long time, and you watch them, and you know, I think I've appeared in front of Judge Kaufman one time in 30 years. But you know what? His reputation for treating people with respect, no matter what side of the apple they were on, no matter whether he thought they were wrong or right, is the unique quality that made him a great judge. And we're going to miss him. And it's my privilege to stand up here today and urge everybody to appreciate what our judges do all around this state to help keep our society orderly and moving in a proper manner, but to do it with civility and wisdom and all the other things that take to make a great judge. I stand in full support of SR 44, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise also in support of the resolution. There's little I could add to the eloquent words that we've heard already from the junior senator from the 8th and the senator from Harrison, senator from Cabell. But I will say this. Judge Kaufman's reputation is statewide. The words, the adjectives that have been used to describe him by those who've already spoken, civility, kindness, are well known throughout the entire state in the Eastern Panhandle. And I'm among those who think that he is to be credited for and is responsible for the level of civility that we see other judges and indeed senators, that we try to maintain the cordiality and collegiality with one another, is a credit to him and his work and the manner in which he has conducted himself in all of his public service throughout the last 40 years. It came as a surprise to me to hear of his retirement. And it happened so fast that there was not an opportunity to urge him to reconsider the question. But such a request might have been made, and it would have been appropriate. I would just like to add my voice to the chorus of those who should thank Tod Kaufman for the example that he set for us all. Attorneys in the courtroom, judges in the courtroom, senators in this hallowed chamber. I urge adoption of the resolution.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Roll call's been demanded. Is demand sustained? The demand is sustained. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent and not voting. More than a majority of those present voting voted in the affirmative. I declare the resolution adopted.